Hi, I'm Ryan Quinn, Viewpoints Editor.
Hey, I'm Andrew Cederdahl. I'm the founder of Pastafarians.
And we have a debate today about an editorial we wrote. We ran a story about the Pastafarians Stone-A-Heathen fundraiser. I believe it was for Amnesty International.
That's great.
Anyway, it was a great fundraiser. Basically it had a really good catch. They would get these black water balloons that looked like stones and throw them at the heathen. And anyway, you had to pay I guess it was $1 for a stone. And it was just a fun way to talk about a serious issue. But when it came to the editorial, of course, we didn't attack the charity work. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But we attacked the ulterior motive, or not. I guess ulterior would be a bad word for it. But in the press release, it stated that it was also to promote the importance of secularization and how that could counteract stoning. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's correct.
And we said that it was unfair to connect religion so directly to stoning, and we said poverty was a much better foundation. How would you contest that?
Well, I think what that editorial did, honestly, is sort of mirror a fallacy that a social movement scholar has sort of critiqued as a tendency to reduce this discussion to a monocausal idealism or a materialist reductionism, which is a fancy term for saying that religion is clearly not the cause of all evils in the world, but you can't escape religion's part in the conflict at all. And I think that the editorial was clearly trying to apologize for religion and sort of make it so that religion had nothing to do with the conflicts whatsoever. I don't think the Pastafarians are arguing that religion is the cause of every conflict. It automatically reduces to religion every time. Of course, poverty plays a role in it. But to say that religion has nothing to do with it is very disingenuous, I think. So that's sort of where the conflict has come about.
Well, I would say the editorial wasn't so, one-sided in saying that, religion had nothing to do with it. We were saying that part of what our problem, our contention with the issue was that we found that poverty had such an overriding reason for why stoning was taking place. Now, of course, in Iran and in these non-secular governments, we have sometimes people get stoned for reasons religion is used to justify. But in village-based stonings and stonings throughout the centuries, it has been because of poverty inducing people to leading them to violence. Now, as an atheist myself, I say, well, obviously this was taken up into religion. It was appropriated into religion and said, okay, we think women are lesser, we think homosexuality is wrong, we think all of these things are terrible, and we're going to get God on our side by writing it into our scriptures. And that's the problem I've had with some of these stances, not just in the Pastafarians, but in stances from Christopher Hitchens, saying that Islam is a religion of evil, or all these stances that blame it on religion. My problem is, isn't religion a creation of man, and thus does not religion have a relatively small role in what mankind does?
Well, obviously you can take religion in two different ways. You could look at it through the contemporary lens, which is what I think you're doing, which I admittedly still think is disingenuous. I think you have to look at the text, and you have to look at the foundation, what the intention of the religion was. And your cartoon about how we're talking about antiquated religious generalizations, I have to disagree with, because we were talking about the foundation, the motivation behind the religion when it was started. And I think that the fundamentalists essentially have their religion right. And I don't like that. I don't like that they have it right. That's why I want them to get rid of it. I don't want them to have religion in their lives, essentially. I want them to make that choice. I want to force them to not have religion, but I want them to make that choice conscientiously. But I think religion definitely plays a role, because, especially in stoning, when you look at Iran, for instance, there was no stoning until 1983, after Ayatollah Khomeini came to power, after the secular Shah was overthrown. And then you had the Sharia law come in. You look at Somalia, look at Sudan. You look at all these places where stoning happens, you have Sharia law, you have religious government, that beforehand, whenever there was no secular government, if there was none in a certain country, there was no stoning. So there's this correlation between religion comes in with the government, then stoning comes in. It's an undeniable correlation, and I think that, look, poverty certainly plays a role, but we can't diminish it to just poverty, because, look, poverty happens in America. Poverty happens in other countries, but they don't stone each other.
But our poverty is not akin to Sudanese poverty or our Iranian poverty. Our homeless people can still survive. We still have social safety nets. And I would say that the reason these governments with Sharia law, and the reason that Sharia law can extend in the first place, and the reason that there is that fundamentalist interpretation of Islam, is because people are poor and they let these things happen. They turn to extreme doctrine because religion is for the hopeless. As you and I are atheists because I believe we are bourgeois, we're aristocratic, we can afford to be hopeless because we have hope in our careers, in the fact that we have good medicine, in the fact that we have health. Unlike these people, they turn to these extreme doctrines because they are hopeless. They live in these places, and I think that that's the problem. And I see a turn, and I don't know if this is in a general turn, but for people like Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins, or these outspoken atheists who used to be associated with the liberal arm of policy, turning to a more conservative arm because they feel that certain religions are necessarily violent. Because you say, as you agree, that they are the right ones, that they are following the fundamentalist interpretation of Islam. And I would say, well, let's play the same game with Christianity. The Pope says he's the only right Christian. The Greek Orthodox says he's the only right Christian. And then the Baptist minister says he's the only right Christian. And this Christianity today says it's the fundamentalists, that it's gone back to Christianity. But if you went back to medieval times, they're stoning each other. They're killing each other. They're throwing each other in water thinking they're witches. The difference is poverty. And I would say poverty, it doesn't matter the religious text. I will agree with you that I think Islam is a more inherently violent religion. But that I don't think that that's any different than Christianity, because I feel the inherent things that the religion says don't matter when it comes to money. McDonald's beats God every time.
Okay, well, what I would ask is why are they turning to religion if they're hopeless? Why aren't they turning to some other form of ideology or some other idea? Why is it that they're all of a sudden they're hopeless, so they're stoning people? I mean, there's sort of a disconnect between what you're saying. I agree, again, that poverty can cause people that sort of societal enemy to come up to where people are susceptible to ideologies, and those ideologies come into play. But why is it that specific ideology is growing?
No matter, exactly. I believe they can turn to other ideologies. For instance, not communism, not saying that, some capitalist thing, that communism's always wrong, but Stalinism, Maoism, Ayn Rand's objectivism, right. we can say that these things are harmful doctrines that people turn to when they are hopeless. So even though that's not religious, it has the same effects as religion. It is just as it's compelling as religion. It's just as all-encompassing as religion. It's just as I'm going to follow you till the day I die as religion. And I think that's the problem that I've had. Like, as a recently new atheist, I would say that I've always wanted a positive view of the world. But the thing about atheism is that it's an inherently negative view, I think. You have to accept the fact that you're going to die and, there's not a meaning out there for you or anything like that. But I think you also have to accept that if everyone were like you, if the entire world turned secular on a dime, there would still be killing, there would still be murder. Because remember, in the original form of Earth, there was no religion. There was just a bunch of people running around in the woods, raping and hitting each other with sticks. And eventually people decided to take that violent world and codify it in religion. So I would say that, I don't know what to think about that. I feel that, like, Hitchens and you and this atheist establishment is too positive about their solution being the correct one, that it will solve too many problems.
Right, well, no, I don't think that secularism is going to turn this world into a great utopia.
Okay, that was straw manning.
I certainly, well, right, I don't think that secularism is going to fix racism and war. We're still going to have that, but it's going to make the world better because we're going to have less of a reason to do it. Because religion encourages the kind of thinking that stifles free thought, it stifles critical thinking, it values authority over evidence, I think, especially these conservative religions that are growing. So that encourages the kind of violence that we're talking about here in poverty. So when people turn to something, if they're hopeless, and they turn to that ideology, they're stuck in it, and they take the will of their mullahs or whoever is directing them to do something at the time, and they need to think about what they're doing, but they don't think about it, and that's the problem with religion, and all those other ideas that you're talking about, these unwavering commitments to an ideology without.
And religion is so much stronger because you have heaven to worry about afterwards, and
I
would, and see, that's where I say I like everything your organization does and everything that secularism does in a country like ours. Hey, sorry guys, we ran out of tape at the end there. But where we left off, basically I can't exactly recall, but I was saying that the problem with a lot of atheist organizations is I think that they address the symptom, not the cause. I think the cause is poverty and the symptom is extreme religion. And I think in a nation like ours where the government's basically secularized, and I think the people are moving toward that direction, that what they're doing is right because it is releasing people of fantasies that they no longer need because they have actual hope. But I think in poor nations, perhaps we should fight poverty and all the terrible things that lead to these extreme doctrines rather than, religion itself.
Right, and I don't disagree with you. I think that the Pastafarians as an organization obviously is a group for atheists and agnostics, so our main focus is going to be religion. I don't think we're necessarily equipped to handle worldwide poverty and things like that as a local group. I like the phrase, think globally, act locally, and I think that's exactly what Stone-A-Heathen did. We raised money for a group that can help fight stoning in whatever way that they deem necessary, Amnesty International, and we can raise awareness of it, but in the process I don't think we should forget the fundamental link between religion and a lot of the world's conflicts. Certainly not all of the world's conflicts, but religion is a very important part. It needs to be a part of the discussion, and we need to make sure that we don't like Christopher Hitchens says, let religious people get away with whatever, horrible thing that they can get away with just because of their religious title. I think we need to critically examine religion, and we need to call it out when necessary. And I think this is a scenario where you should call out religion.
All right, thank you very much for coming on. It's a great debate. I'm Ryan Quinn, Viewpoints Editor.
And I'm Andrew Cederdahl, the founder of the Pastafarians.
And thanks for watching.
Thank you.